We are standing on Weir Point now. As you can see, we're in the saddle portion of the hill. It's fairly steep. Wish we could go up to the top, but you're not permitted up there unless you have an off-trail pass, which I do not have this year, so I'm not going to go against the rules. Looking off to the north, you can see Last Stand Hill just above the road here. It's on the horizon. And to the left of Last Stand Hill, you can see the trees and the National Cemetery. That's Cemetery Ridge. Now, by the time Weir got here to this point, it was about 5:25 p.m. And of course, he was only here with his company. It was the only company that left at the beginning. And he looked through his field glasses for a while, and they thought they saw Custer. And after a little while, they noticed that it was Indians, and they were shooting at objects on the ground, so they were a little dismayed. They weren't really sure what had happened. Thought maybe Custer had been driven off to the north or something like that, or maybe it was a rear guard action they were seeing. Custer had been pushed off somewhere. About 10 minutes went by, and 3 other companies arrived here. Companies H under Benteen, K under Godfrey, and Company M under French. They had also disobeyed orders. Reno wanted everybody to stay at the hill, and they finally followed Company D here. Now all the companies formed skirmish lines. You had Company D out in front here to the left, and Company H to the right, and then Company K and Company M formed in the back. They stayed here till about 5:45, and at that point it was fairly clear that the battle on the Custer field was over. The Indians started to filter back this way because they could see the soldiers here. The soldiers had placed a guidon up on the hill here, so it was waving. The Indians knew soldiers were back this area in Reno Hill, but they saw that they were moving forward. So the Indians started to filtrate back this way after they took out Custer and his forces. Well, Benteen saw this, and he just looked at Weir and said, "Man, this is a hell of a place to fight." So he was of the opinion that they get out of here and go back to the south. Reno had sent a messenger forward, Lieutenant Hare, as the new acting adjutant since Hodgson was dead. And Hare basically looked at the situation and kind of concurred with Benteen, saying, "Yeah, this is not a good place to be. We better go back." And that's what they ended up doing. Companies M, K, and H did pull out, start falling back to the south. Company D also pulled out. They were a little bit further north than everybody, so it took them a little while to catch up with everybody. The Indians really started to close in, though, so at that point, a rear guard action had to be fought. So Company K was picked under Godfrey. He formed a skirmish line, and they kind of walked back toward Reno Hill, clashed with the Indians. One soldier, Vincent Charles, was shot, wounded, shot through the hips, fell off his horse. The soldiers said that they would come back and get him. Unfortunately, that never did happen. Vincent Charles tried to hide himself as best he could, but the Indians did find him, and they found his body a couple days after the battle. Obviously, he was dead, and he had a stick shoved down his throat, so he had a pretty bad ending. But he was the only casualty. The rest of Company K, the rear guard, the skirmish line, held off the Indians, held them at bay, and all 4 companies ended up making it back to Reno Hill at a little bit after 6:00 p.m. on June 25th. So at that point, the Custer battle definitely over, and this is the closest that the survivors got to Custer during the battle. They got this far and then ended up retreating back to Reno Hill. So with that done, we will now go to the next segment.